I'm a Tibetan refugee living in India, and the only difference is I came to India as a child, and that was in 1959. Ever since, I've never been back to my own country. Which has been ever since occupied by the government of China, and it still is occupied. So I've never been back. But how I spent my life in exile is firstly as a student in school and then college. And as I grew up, the responsibility in me as a free Tibetan grew along with me. And I always felt that I had to do something for Tibet. And also spend my freedom in a more productive way for the general good of the people. Therefore, I started looking into areas where I could contribute something from my very limited ability. And I did a lot of work in many different fields, but the most time I've spent is actually in the field of women. This interests me a lot, maybe because I'm a woman, but also maybe because of the fact that there have been many areas in the field of women that are neglected. So whatever it may be, and then also I must say that even in regard to the freedom of a nation or a struggle of a nation, I felt that women play a very important role, and then similarly in the preservation of culture. So therefore, I spent a lot of my time, probably about 10 years, working with Tibetan women on a very grassroots level, working through the Tibetan Women's Association, which we revived in 1984. And then while working for the women in the Tibetan Women's Association, I spotted that the women in religion, or let's say Tibetan nuns, the field of Tibetan nuns was again in a very small corner, and I felt that it really needed a little bit of attention. And then I would go around and meet nuns and ask, why did you become a nun? And I couldn't find a logical answer. And I felt very sad when I couldn't get a proper answer, because I felt that here they've chosen such a wonderful field, and then if you don't know why you're in that field, it's very sad. But then later on I discovered or realized that the reason was they didn't really have much of education in that field. So ever since then, I started paying attention to in the field of nuns through education. It's very important to talk about the history of the Tibetan nuns, for that matter, when you talk about anything, because without understanding the history, I often find that people have a very lopsided understanding of anything, fractions of cultures, fractions of this tale, that tale, which is not much of a help. So I'm very happy to go back to the time when the Tibetan nuns came into being. There were Tibetan nuns in Tibet from far back as there were Tibetan monks. But the difference that the monks had a very profound system of education in Tibet from very ancient times, whereas the nuns never had a system of education. For that matter, you find nuns who know how to, very, very few nuns who know how to read and write. So that's the biggest difference. Otherwise, there were nuns from very far back as 12th century, even before that. And I say this because the first nunnery in Tibet came into being in the 12th century. And then, just because there were no education, that doesn't mean that there were not highly realized female Buddhists in Tibet. For example, Shuksep Jetsunma, who's supposed to be very highly realized, is a nun. If there's no tradition, how come she's there? Then I would say that it's not that there's no tradition, but nobody did it. Because somebody recognized her and she became recognized. Everybody recognizes her as Khandro Rinpoche. So that's why I say that certain things just have to be done. And if there are objections with reason, yes, we accept. And if there are no objections, take it on. And if there are no reasons for objection, don't take it. The history of this particular nunnery came into being, I would say, through necessity. The reason I say that is, as you know, we are in exile in India as refugees. And while in exile, we are trying to make the best of our being here in this wonderful country where everything is so, you have the cultural freedom, religious freedom, and then all the people are so kind to us and they allow us to preserve our culture, identity. So under this light, we do our best to really preserve it. And most importantly, our identity, because that's what is important even for the Tibetans to be born. This time I noticed the nuns needed help. But barely had I started helping the nuns that were already there, which were under very poor condition. We had a huge influx of nuns from Tibet. They had escaped and they suddenly landed here. All I could see was they were all in tattered health and traumatized. But all they knew was they wanted to see His Holiness and be near Him, which was wonderful for them. Ever since then, my focus has been on their education and health. Firstly, they were in tatters, in terms of health, because they had come over the borders from Tibet, walking in the snow. Many of them had their frostbitten toes and, damaged kidneys because they were beaten in the prisons in Tibet.
I was born in east of Tibet. I have a father and 2 sisters. My father is a nomad. I used to go with my father to herd animals until 14. And then I left for Giza to become a nun. In Giza there is a Rinpoche who had so many followers. At that time so many were going to India. I asked them if I could join them. This was in 1994. We were traveling mostly in the night and there were chances of being caught. We were caught twice. I decided to become a nun when I was 10 years old, around 1986 or 87. I joined the monastery near my village, Giza. In the monastery, we were 5 nuns, including me. My parents were very happy when I decided to be a nun, because in my family there was nobody ordained for. My parents were very religious minded because they have led a different life, having married, having family, experienced the difficulties. So they didn't mind my becoming a nun. So without my parents' knowledge, I informed Rinpoche that I wanted to join the group. Rinpoche organized the escape and gave me some money. Somewhere near Nepal border, we met 15 Nepali police, but we were able to escape them. When we reached the city in Nepal, we met a bus driver. He took us back to where we were before and we were given back to the Nepal police. The Nepal police kept all the monks in custody and promised to release women and children. Monks were trying to resist, and in this chaos, all escaped. We saw so many police motorbikes, 3 buses following us. There were around 100 of them. We were caught and taken back. By the time it was a bit dark, we started resisting the police. Then fighting started. One person got killed and several injured.
One of them even lost her eye because it was frostbitten, and we had to really care for that, and eventually she lost that. But she's a happy person now. And then, not only that, in Tibet they had come from very further place from Lhasa. So 44 of them literally had, come through prostration to Lhasa to see the Shakyamuni Buddha there. And then it took them 3 months to reach there on foot and prostrating.
From the monastery to Lhasa, we came by truck and it took us 5 days. When we had planned the escape from Lhasa, it was 9 o'clock. By 9:30, the Chinese had heard about this and we were caught. After the resistance with Nepali police, we walked for 3 days. For the first 2 days, we didn't have any food on the way. On the final day, we met someone who was living by the river. He gave us corn. After 2 months, they were sent back to the village. I lived in Lhasa for 3 months. During this time, my uncle's son came to Lhasa and he took me to India. Both of us came to India walking. It took us 28 days. After becoming a nun, I got the opportunity to study Buddhism and to practice Dharma. Had I been at home, I would not have got all this opportunity. I think all women should become nuns. I stayed in Dharamshala for 1 month and then met His Holiness. I felt happy within myself.
But then practically speaking, His Holiness can't go and say, okay, you go and live there, you eat this. He has so many things to handle. So at this point, the Women's Association, and I was the president of the association at that time, we felt that as women, we really had to now pull our socks and do something about these nuns. And before we realized, we had 44 nuns, and in 2 months' time, that grew into 66 nuns who had nothing on them, nothing to eat, nowhere to go. So we were donated the money to buy this plot of land here with nothing on it. And then we started living in a house nearby, in a village house, half finished. Half were living in the tent outside and half inside the half-finished house. When I say half-finished, it didn't even have the floors. It didn't even have the glasses on the windows. So anyway, the rent was very cheap, so we put them in there. And that's how the nunnery began. So we started like that. But regardless, I always felt if I did something for them, I would like to do something that they can be proud of, not always having the handouts. I think all said and done, I think all over the world, when it comes to women, very often it's the handouts. Why I made it this way is I wanted them to be proud of where they are and where they live. But then I must also make this very clear that this institution has nothing that is not needed. It is simple, it's strong, and it's very practical. That's what I went for. And we call this Domaling because it's a non-sectarian nunnery. This doesn't believe in any particular sect as such. And this became as something very precious and at the same time something very practical. Because we had 66 nuns from 66 different places from Tibet, belonging to different sects. And it was quite a challenge to put them all together and say, let's go non-sectarian. And then nuns themselves have also played a big role in the building of this institute. For example, when this building was going on, I said, you don't know, you're not a carpenter, you're not a mason, but you can at least carry the bricks from one place to other and save some money for the construction. And they did that gladly, and they've really contributed a lot by carrying bricks and stones and cement from one place to the other whenever they were needed. Eventually being cared by us who they really trusted. But that was the beginning of our job. But then all said and done, everything that's going on for the Tibetans in exile, from monasteries to lay people, to old people, to young people's education, everything is because of His Holiness's far-sighted vision. He wants the community to be progressive. He wants the community to be peaceful. He wants the community also to be decent, which means He's made sure that both men and women have equal rights to everything, including education. And same thing with the nuns. He always said, give education to the nuns. Oh, it's a very, very heavy schedule they go through. They get up around 5 o'clock, and 5:30 they go for their morning prayers, and by 6:30 they have a cup of tea and then come out, and then maybe they have 15 minutes and then they again go back for an assembly. Then after that they begin their day's classes.
Where are you from? I'm from Vietnam, and I'm from Tibet.
So you have to say three things. I am from Dongju in song in Tibet, so that the foreigner knows where it is. Okay, will you do that once again, please?
And then lunch. And then after lunch, they again have their evening debates.
With the Buddhist philosophical, the subject, they didn't have it before for the nuns. So with the Tibetan Nuns project, the nuns have been given this opportunity. At 3 o'clock, the debate starts at 3 o'clock, and for 30 minutes they have a prayer, a line from a text, and they debate on it just to give them a clear understanding of the text.
We debate, we talk about its person, yeah. One person, example, one person. Hand is not person, and its eye is not person, its leg is not person. Where is the person? They said to us, yeah. Then we said its hand is not person, its eye is not person. It's if eyes and hand is person, then one person has many person, yeah. Different, it's main person. But so we said to they said to where is the person? We said it's heart and hand and eyes, it's all together. Then we said to it's a person. We said we answered to them.
जो खड़े हैं वो क्वेश्चन पूछ रहे हैं, जो बैठे हैं वो उत्तर दे रहे हैं। क्वेश्चन ये है कि कलेश को मिटाने के लिए ध्यान की ज़रूरत है कि नहीं है। फिर जो बैठे वो उत्तर दे रहे हैं कि कलेश को मिटाने के लिए ध्यान की ज़रूरत है।
And then they have to work in between, doing little things here and there for the nunnery, and then back to evening studies again. So the whole day, some of them jokingly say that we just keep the books one after the other, and at the end of the day we don't have time to look at on the first book that we put in. So it's a very, very heavy schedule they have. There are many other things like chanting, sand mandala, bata sculpture. There are many other aspects of the whole religious field. And in Tibet, the nuns were never taught any of these. They only did a little bit of chanting here and there, that also they learned it on their own. But doing sand mandala by the nuns was never heard of. So what they're doing here is we're teaching them how to do the sand mandala. We are also teaching them how to do butter sculpture. And it was a very exciting moment for us to see how well they did it. And then they also use all these religious symbols, trumpets and all of this. Yeah, they're learning every aspect of Buddhism. And then also not just the religious studies, they also do a lot of environmental studies, try to keep the surrounding clean, and also pay attention to health issues. And then also they have to work in the construction, because while the construction is going on, they always take turns to carry bricks and sand and all of this. And then they also cook for themselves. It's not easy to cook for over 200 nuns.
I just found more depth in Buddhism. And at the start, maybe I was very feminist, and I did have a lot of feminist ideas because of feeling this frustration. But when I met Buddhism, because the Dharma is so open to everybody without distinction, we all have Buddha nature. Man and woman, there is no difference, both can attain enlightenment. As soon as I arrived in India, I went to His Holiness Karmapa, who's the head of our lineage in Dharamsala, and I requested His Holiness if I could ordain as a nun, and His Holiness told me I could, and I requested His Holiness' blessing, so His Holiness cut my hair. So before that I'd been feeling that, I wasn't sure if it was going to happen, maybe there was some obstacles, maybe it's too difficult. But once His Holiness cut my hair, then I felt now, the path is straight.
Nunneries are more needed now than ever before, leave alone doing away with them. Because, you look around the world, because of globalization, all the issues are in front of our eyes and ears. So that makes us realize how much more the spiritual development has become important for the world and for the humanity. Buddhism doesn't believe in a figurative God as such. And we believe that Lord Buddha has shown us the way to liberate ourselves, and we have the power to do that if we chose to and if we did it the right way. Now, in terms of their intermingling with the society, with the community, and their respect, I think it depends very much on every individual. They have to really earn the respect. Just because they're wearing the robe doesn't mean that they can demand respect from the community. I think person who wears the robe should be worthy of the robe and act accordingly, and therefore the respect will shower upon you. Look, you are supposed to be the example for the lay community. You have to lead us into the better path, so remember this all the time. In terms of the communities, looking at them, I think it's a very, very respectful attitude altogether. But they have to really earn more on that. And then I also feel that they should really go more into the community and be of some service. Means serving the humanity, serving other than yourself. So to do that, I also believe that they need a certain skill. Therefore, I think firstly to be educated the way they're doing, and then later on they could take up teachers' roles, doctors' roles, health workers' roles, and all of this, midwives' roles. Therefore, I think these nuns, to be able to focus on these principles or values is really essential for the world eventually. But that will happen if the nuns keep their eyes and ears and mind open, and open for all sentient beings and for all humanity. I hope one day these nuns, or some of them, will go out into the world and be of service anywhere in the world by being an example in this very greedy, selfish, and me and no other person world of today.
Start then on your way and go for the good of the many, for the happiness of the many, out of compassion for the world. Preach the law. Preach it in its spirit and its letter. Show in the fullness of its purity the practice of the religious life.